So last night I was battling a fever, still do have some flu-like symptoms today. So I ended up missing an entire night of hockey, and what a night. The New Jersey Devils saw their winning streak ended off a hat trick of disallowed goals, culminating in fans throwing, well, pretty much everything on the ice. I'll break down the objects on the ice scenario at the end of the video, but let's first talk about the 3 disallowed goals. And I'm going to start with the third goal because it's definitely the least contentious. So the third disallowed New Jersey goal was on a distinct kicking motion. And the rules for this one are pretty clear. Rule 49.2 says explicitly that a kicked puck that deflects off the body of a player of either team, including the goalkeeper, shall be ruled no goal. So even if a kicked puck bounces off a bunch of things, unless it touches a stick, it's no goal. So this is the one no goal that I can say confidently was called correctly. That being said, I'd actually be in favor of allowing kicked pucks if they're kicked outside the goal crease. Anyway, the other 2 goals are a bit more controversial. The first was a goalie interference call, and this one is always tough for fans because it involves a lot of subjectivity on part of the referee. I think this replay probably shows what happened the best. Basically, the attacking skater was in the crease and had his skate next to the goalie's. The rulebook says in 69.1 that a goalkeeper should have the ability to move freely in the crease, and that's the principle that underlines the rule. Again, this is sort of a weird one. From this angle, it's almost like, okay, you can see how the goaltender could have been restricted from moving, but it didn't actually look like he was. Like, the skate was there before the shot, it was still sort of there afterwards, but it didn't seem to actually impede Murray's movement, even though it could have, if that makes sense. Other people have talked about Marner, how he was pushing the player into the goaltender. I honestly don't see that. There was some contact, however, an attacking player also has to make a reasonable effort to avoid contact. Anyway, I don't know how I would have called this. Ultimately, the call on the ice was no goal, and I don't think there was evidence to overturn that. It's a very soft calling of the rule, so I can definitely understand why fans are angry, and this is one that really could have went either way. The second goal being called off was also iffy. This was a case of incidental goalie contact, and we covered this on the Rangers play last week. Basically, if a goalie is out of the crease, incidental contact will be allowed, even if it results in a goal where the player made a reasonable effort to avoid contact. So this is another one where the refs have to subjectively make a decision. And again, this is a situation where some people may not agree with the rule. A lot of people want the goalies to be fair game when they leave the crease, but that's what the rule says. I will say, however, the more I watch the replay, the one thing that gives me pause is the fact that Murray skated into the player. I don't know if I would call that one. I honestly think the Devils player maybe didn't help himself by doing that little move with his forearm, but that's iffy. It's a very soft use of the rule, but I gotta say, it's also in line with how it's typically called. So yeah, I know. Besides for the third goal, I'm definitely being a bit of a fence sitter here, and that's because these were 2 tough, subjective calls. I understand definitely why Devils fans were angry, and of course, after the third call, well, pandemonium broke out. First of all, a fan threw a hat on the ice, which is hilarious after a trio of no goal calls, but then things got ugly. Listen, I understand being frustrated, but do not throw things on the ice, especially when there are players around. Jerseys, alright, I guess, but people were throwing cans of beer. That's dangerous, especially when being thrown from a distance, and when there were not only players on the ice, but also later on officials and people cleaning the ice up. Even Lindy Ruff was like, just stop, and obviously because he also risked getting a bench penalty for objects on ice. The refs didn't issue that because they probably wouldn't have made it home that night, but I mean, it was a mess. The Leafs had to leave the ice because debris was going towards the bench. I absolutely love this shot of Nylander in the tunnel. All in all, probably the most disappointing way for New Jersey's amazing winning streak to end. I was not happy to see this, but that's my breakdown. Let me know what you guys think down below.